My dilemma is exactly as you described a few minutes earlier, that in talking with people who are channeling information from the non-physical, I am getting these mixed messages.
We understand.
So I have a son and family in Seattle.
We hear.
What am I to do?
Well, here's what we would say. We would say, these people that I love have source energy at their core. And if they are loving life in this physical format and wanting to continue it, they will be inspired to be in the right place at the right time. And then we would soothe ourselves by acknowledging that there is no such thing as death, and that there is nothing awful about making the transition into non-physical, because we are all eternal. In other words, you really got to get over this death thing if you are to feel joyful about physical experience also. People around the time of the harmonic convergence were plying us with these kinds of questions. And we said, well, you're going to wake up and you're going to say, did I miss something? Because these things are not happening all at once. It is a gradual evolution of the energy. And then when the Y2K disaster was upon your doorstep, a dear friend sat here and he had been listening to those who had been channeling information. They were predicting this ultimate disaster, financial collapse and so on because of the computer disaster. And he said, what will the newspaper read the next day? And we said, much to do about nothing. And that's really what we want to say about all of these negative predictions. They are much to do about something that does not have to be in your world. In other words, there is so much more havoc happening on your planet because of the bombs that your government is dropping, and you don't have control about that either. And so you just finally have to say, of the many things that I don't have control of, the way this Earth spins in its orbit is really high on the list of things I don't have control about.
So can we dispense with global warming? Is that not a human-caused problem, and are we not to do anything about it because it's futile and not beyond our control?
Well, here's what we would like to say about that. Your planet has been set into motion through the thought from non-physical, and don't you find it amazing that your Earth spins in its orbit at all?
Yes.
And don't you think that whatever got it spinning can deal with the temperature of it?
It makes sense to me. Absolutely.
And then we want to ask, for those who are comparing the temperatures so accurately that they can pronounce the trend toward warming, what instruments were they using 100, 200, 300, 500, 2,000 years ago? In other words, are they even comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges? In other words, we do not think that the instruments that you're using today to measure compare at all with whatever it is, wherever they're getting the data from before. In other words, we don't think they know that the planet is warming, and we don't think you have broad enough view to really give word to a trend. We think that it is like so many things. You believe that you need to control a condition, and you can't control the conditions and get people to move in the direction of what you want unless you scare them a lot. In other words, because people are not motivated, it seems, by the call of source. Look how many hours we spend talking to all of you about feeling good. We should not have to do such a sales job about feeling good. But it's because you have been oriented for so long that most of you don't take action until something really awful looms. And those who have things to sell have learned that about your personalities. And so they've learned that if they're going to get you to move, they're going to prod you with something that's painful. And so that's why most people get your vote about what they want to do by you weighing all of the consequences of what will happen if you don't. And in the process of that, people become more and more fearful. And as they become more and more fearful, they're less and less guided. And as they're less and less guided, they're more and more vulnerable. And as they're more and more vulnerable, more things they don't want happen to them. And then they say, see, those naysayers were right. And we say, no, they weren't. They were just influencing you to that creation of your own reality. You could have created something more positive if you had wanted to. And what makes it all right is that the dilution ratio on your planet is still working effectively. And by that we mean the longer the old-timers are here and worrying, the worse their life gets, but then they croak. And new ones come in who are optimistic and expecting better things. And so when the old ones die who are worried about global warming and the new ones are born who aren't, your problem will cease. It really is like that. Plus, those like you are contributing to the improvement of the dilution ratio, because even though you are older and you have the potential of pushing against, you are deliberately learning to turn downstream. In other words, you're learning to control your own vibration. So your worlds are turning around for you in the midst of worlds that aren't necessarily going very well for others. Haven't you noticed that in times of trauma, there are always those who thrive? That in times of financial ruin, there are always those who do just fine. In times of famine, there are always those who eat. In times of sickness and drought, there are always those who drink and do fine. You are not a world that is living simultaneous lives in the sense that whatever is happening to all of you. You are vibrational islands within this environment, and you are living the results of your alignment, period. And to the degree those who are focused negatively influence you, then you create the world that they point out. And to the degree that those who are around you are influencing you toward feeling better, then to that degree you create a world that is pleasing to you. It has always been quite a mixed bag here in this leading edge environment. That's what makes it so inviting for the likes of you.
But you're saying that if enough people think those negative thoughts and envision those possibilities, that can influence the earth and that can...
No, that's not what we said. We said if enough people get negatively focused, they will mess up their individual lives, but they have no control in yours. Enough people can't get worried about global warming to ruin your planet for you.
I love it. Because I'm surrounded by people who believe that.
Your view of this universe is so minuscule, none of it counts. Just like your view of your human body is so minuscule. That's why they call it practicing medicine. They have no clue what they're doing. It's surgery with a chainsaw is what all of it is. In other words, compared to vibrational alignment on a cellular basis, which is what you get when you line up with who you really are and what you want. In other words, the cells of your body have created their vibrational escrow too. And when you're joyful, you let those cells find the thriving that they want. And when you're ornery, you don't. And when you're ornery and you don't, and the cells are not allowed the alignment that they're asking for, then your physical body has a deficiency of some kind. And then you go to somebody outside of you who takes some awkward method and applies it to your body, usually throwing it more out of balance than bringing it into balance, and you call that medicine. And we call it tampering. We call it outside of the basis of that which is the essence of who you are. We want you to get in alignment with who you are and then take your action. And when you do, you'll discover that you have the ability in this body, on this earth, to continue to thrive in what we would call an indefinite experience. We can see no ending to it. And so we see no reason whatsoever to take some piece of information, no matter how well documented it is from other disconnected beings, and use it as the reason to disallow the well-being to flow to me right here in my body right now. We've seen this vibrational escrow. You see, the reason that we speak so powerfully about this is because we see the energy stream of that which carried you all here before your birth, and we know the well-being that was in that stream. And then we see the physical emergence of all of that which is physically focused here and now, and we know the power of your desire. And then we get to watch the contrast that you're living, and we have bird's eye view of the birthing of the new expansion that you are all individually and collectively giving birth to. So we've seen your new world because it is born out of the contrast, and we know what it is you are reaching for. And we have to say to you that it is only that which you're asking for the source wraps itself around. So it takes a tremendous amount of negative attention to even mess up your own life experience. But source will never go with any of those rockets about what you do not want. That's why we are so sure about the positive expansion of your earth experience, you see. You're here as the leading edge of that which is source, asking for more that source is embracing and becoming. So we know the future of this planet, and it is good.
Wow.
And if for any reason you seek some piece of information that causes you to think contrary of that, you feel gut-wrenching negative emotion, which is your confirmation that your thought is against that which the source within you knows. Isn't that nice to know? My fear is there for a reason. When they tell me that the world is falling apart and that this is the end and that my children will not have a place to be and that their children may be extinct, and I feel that gut-wrenching feeling that I have, I've got to know this thought is bogus. And it doesn't matter how many scientists with all of their brilliance are coming to the same conclusion, they're defying what my source knows, and my source knows. Because my source was here before I was all here. My source was here when this earth plane was an idea. Source is in on all of that, you see. You need not worry, and your own guidance will show you that. It's not possible for you to not live happily ever after. Some will have to die to do it. But it does not mean that it is not possible for you to live right here on planet Earth happily ever after. It is your plan. It is our plan. It is the promise of your future. And anything else is coming from the disconnected mind of man.
Thank you. Wonderful.